Thank you very much. I appreciate the intro, and thank you for my theme song. I appreciate that as well. So for those of you who couldn't hear the intro, yes, I am from Australia, and yes, Australia is slowly not on fire. So thank you for your interest and care. We appreciate that. I've had that question about 100 times in the last 2 weeks, or 2 months really, but it is an incredible time for our country, but I have been here most of the time, and it's wonderful to see the community pull together, similar that we've seen here under different disasters. But I'm not here to talk about that tonight, but I wanted to say I appreciate all the care and concern that the US has given to us as a country. It means a lot, so I wanted to get that out of the way. I'm actually here tonight to talk about marketing, and that has been my passion and my interest for many years in my life. And I wanted to see a quick show of hands for those of you who run your own business. Okay, wonderful. Keep your hand up if you manage or you do the marketing in your organization. Okay, and keep it up a third time if you actually like doing it. All right, 2 people, wonderful. We're on the right track here. So for me, marketing has been a passion for a long time. I love the ability to persuade people in an ethical way and to help them to use products and services that make a difference in their life. I also like to sell a lot of stuff for people. It's kind of part of what we do as well. But usually we're doing it with some sort of purpose. And that's what I want to talk about tonight. Now, the reason I've called this talk Marketing Myopia is because I believe this is a condition that has crept into the world, especially over the last 15 years. Now, for those of you who don't have a science background, you might be wondering what the hell myopia is, right? So I thought I'd start with some quick, simple definitions. And my eyesight isn't as good as it used to be, but basically marketing, if you don't know, is the action or business of profiting and selling products and services, including market research and advertising. So we all kind of know what marketing is, give or take, right? But what is myopia? Does anyone know what myopia is? Nearsightedness, very nice. Yeah, it's a fancy word for nearsightedness. And when I look that up in the dictionary.com, you can see that they say a lack of imagination, foresight, or intellectual insight. And this is what I see is missing somewhat from marketing today, because we're all getting obsessed with the numbers. You know, every time I talk to a client, they're saying, well, what's my rate of return on this ad campaign? Or how am I ranking in the search engines? Or, you know, is this content piece going to get the right SEO keywords? There's a lot of detail and minutia, but they forget the whole reason why we're doing marketing. It becomes very myopic. So that's what I want to talk about to begin with, is just why we are that way and how that is changing for us as a society, and I think the right mindsets that we should have to help us to do better marketing for ourselves and for the world at large. So the way marketing works today is very, very different than it did, let's say, 30 years ago. 30 years ago, if you had a company, basically all you did was you posted a lot of ads on billboards, in magazines. If you had enough money, you went on the radio or you went on TV, and you had some sort of promotional campaign. And if you did that for long enough, people bought your stuff, right? That's all we did. And eventually something would become a household name or it would die away. That was kind of marketing 101. But as you know, that has changed a lot in the last 25 years because of the way we live our lives. Now, I was standing up the back watching before, and most of us seem to have a cell phone, so you know the kind of addiction that we have to that. But it's also changed the way that we actually think and perceive when we're purchasing from a company. So I wanted to liken this to a mountain. Now let me ask you for a second, if you were to go mountain climbing, what's the first thing that you need to do? Get some shoes? What else did I hear? Say again? Get equipment? Plan, train, right? There's a lot of steps. You wouldn't just get out of your car at the foot of the mountain and just walk to the top, would you? There's a lot of steps and a lot of planning that has to happen along the way. And the same thing happens when we buy a product or service today. We don't just go completely to the top of the mountain immediately. There's a lot of steps in the process. And what I've noticed is if you look at this as a marketing mountain, there's a kind of a process that I've kind of mapped out that works to help you to think about how your customer journey goes. So the first thing that I notice is when you have a new product or service in your life that you're thinking about, usually you'll go straight to the search engines or you'll go to social media, right? That's the first place you go. Now, if it looks okay, it doesn't look dodgy, it doesn't look like it's questionable, it looks like it might work for you, the next thing you're going to do is you're going to start to get involved in their content, right? You might read some blogs, you might join their email list, you might watch some videos, and you'll start to get a little bit of a relationship with that company before you buy. And the larger the scale of the product, the larger the price, the more likely you are to do this as well. Now, once you get to that point, that's when things start to get a little bit more tense for you, because now you have to start to decide if you want to commit to this emotionally, right? This is where you start to say, am I willing to like this post? Maybe even share it with someone. Ask opinions from other people I know about it. And slowly you can see yourself going up the mountain, but you still haven't bought yet. This is probably done over maybe a week, sometimes over 6 months, depending on your decision-making type and personality. But you can see all that happens before we even decide to buy something. And then the final step is really the comparison and the social proof. And once we get to that point, if we feel like enough other people have climbed up that mountain and have chosen to buy, then finally, that's when we buy. So that's a much longer process than it used to be 15, 20 years ago, right? And you can see the pieces are very important. You can't get to the top to a decision without having some of those along the way. Now, if you have a recommendation, sometimes you'll go up faster, but a lot of the time you'll actually take this process yourself and you'll do it in your own way. So what happens once you get to the top of the mountain? What happens once you've bought? What's usually the process after that? Rebuying? Doesn't say? What would you usually do once you bought a product? What's the usual process after that? Leave some reviews, I think I heard. Use it, that's a good one, yes, exactly. What I've noticed is once you get to the top of the mountain and you've bought something, that's when the gravity takes over, okay? It's much easier for you to rebuy and to recommend and to become what I call a raving fan, someone who actually wants to share this with other people, okay? And we all have things in our lives that we're very connected to, products and services, brands, and we are raving fans of that. And that's what we want to do, is share it out in the marketplace. Now, what I've noticed is the difference between marketing and sales is that very often a salesperson will try to push someone up the mountain. So they'll get behind the person and say, come on, this is great, you're going to love it, just give it a shot. And they're shoving the person up the mountain, which doesn't feel very good as a consumer. I'm sure we've all had that shove from a salesman, right, once or twice. It's not a great feeling. But when you have taken that trip yourself, you've walked all the way to the top, suddenly, and you've decided to buy on your own terms, the gravity of rebuying, of recommending, and becoming a fan takes over. So this is something that I try to, when I'm working with a client, I try to look at, okay, what are the steps that we can use on our way? Now, not everyone wants to do video or email campaigns. Not everyone wants to be the top of the search engines, but there's a lot of things you can do to make that decision the person's own decision. And that's what we want to do as we're marketing our products and services, especially if there's something that's very new in the marketplace. They're going to take a long time climbing that mountain. And rather than going out and trying to shove people to the top and saying, come on, you'll love it, it's much better to do it this way, because then you create those fans and those recommendations and those rebuys. So a long time ago, Peter Drucker, who I believe is one of the best business thinkers in the world, he actually said this in 1957. He said that marketing is your entire business seen from the point of view of the customer. And I love this definition because whenever I'm working with a brand, I always make sure that they've got a 360 view of their product. The customer's view, their own internal view, people who are dissatisfied with the customer. You've got to look at it from all different angles. And everything you do adds up. And so I always keep that in mind. Rather than say marketing is about trying to promote goods and services, I say marketing is your entire business seen from the point of view of the customer. And if you get that right, things are a lot easier than if you're trying to trick people into buying something, if that makes sense. So what I would like to do to kind of solve the marketing myopia is to give you a couple of marketing mindsets, things that I have learned that have been really valuable for me as a marketer and also for my clients, and hopefully will help you to think the right way about your products and services. If they're new or if they're established in the market, I think they have the same ability to help. Now, before I do that, I just want to have a little ad break, if that's okay. So today, as I was collecting my mail, I went and I found all this really cool promotional material. I don't know if any of you get these kind of things in the mail, but I have here it's a 20% off dry cleaning coupon. So I was wondering if anyone would like that. No? How about you, sir? There you go. 20% off dry cleaning, just for you. All right, I also have $1 a day for LA Fitness. Anyone like some fitness? How about you? There you go. You can have some fitness. All right, this is a big one. This one's really exciting. $537 off car insurance for AAA. Come on, you know you want some car insurance. You have to have it. Oh, there we go. Thank you, sir. There we go. And I've saved the best one for last. 69-cent avocados. Who wants some? You over here, sir. You look like you need an avocado. There you go. Why didn't that work? Why didn't everyone jump up and say, give me the avocado? Because it's a mismatch, right? You didn't come here for me to give you products and services or discounts or deals. You came here to learn something, to network. It's a complete mismatch. And that's why I believe that the message must match the market. It's very, very important that whatever you do, the message that you're sharing must match the market that you're sending it to. Otherwise, they will do exactly what you just did then. You're like, no thanks, I'm good, I'll be fine, right? You don't have that great feeling when you open your mailbox and find a bunch of junk mail, because there's no match with you, it's just there. So I've been studying this, and I've found a couple of people who I think are geniuses at matching their message to the market. Does anyone know who the gentleman is on the left? Conor McGregor, that's right. So Conor McGregor, for those of you who may not know him, if you don't know him, he's a famous UFC fighter. He makes his living punching people in the face, right? That's what he does for a job. And yet I think he's one of the most amazing marketers I've ever seen in the sport. He's wearing his own brand of suit there, August McGregor, and he's holding in his hand a glass of his own Proper 12 whiskey. Now, in terms of matching the market, you wouldn't think that someone whose job is to fight would be able to find areas where they can match the market. But if you think about it, a lot of his user base of fans are male, right? They want to look their best, just like him. And what do they like to do when they go out to the bar to watch a fight? Have a drink, right? And if his brand happens to be behind the counter, which one do you think they're going to do if they're a fan of his? His brand. So it's an incredible match in terms of the marketplace. And this is one of the things I notice people miss, is they don't think about, okay, what will my audience or my market be doing on the way to getting to my product? What is it that they will actually use and benefit from that I could actually add into the mix, right? How about the other lady over on the right? Kylie Jenner, exactly. It's not Kim Kardashian, I learned. It's Kylie Jenner. I think she is somehow a Kardashian. I don't quite understand how it works, but somehow she's linked, right? Now, Kylie Jenner, in case you don't know, is the world's youngest billionaire. She's 21 years old and she's worth over $1 billion. And that is because she has created an empire around her image, her personal brand, and she has marketed to the people who love her and want to buy from her. Her brand, Kylie Cosmetics, just signed a huge deal with Ulta, and they are now aligned so that all her followers online get to buy her products in the stores. But before that, she had a very small team of 8 people. They managed her social media. She would promote the products and distribute them, and that's all that it took to grow to $1 billion, because the message to the market was a perfect match. And that's what I want to encourage you to think about, is how can I match the market and my message? Is there an alignment somewhere where you can put those two together? And if you can, that will make it much easier for you to succeed in what you're trying to do. So what I always ask people is this: how can you better align with the behavior, the beliefs, or the culture of your customers? Culture is a really important thing. If you use your culture in the right way and you can adapt to it, if you look at like the hip-hop culture, for instance, they're very good at adapting products and services into that culture. Sports do it a lot now as well, right? You see Beats headphones at the basketball and things like that. The culture is really linked to the customers. So that's a good question I always come back to, is how can you match your message or align with the behavior, the beliefs, and the culture of your customers? The second one that I want to share with you is about your product being your best marketing. Now, I want to do a little quiz here to see how people are kind of brand oriented in the room. So let's do a quick little question here. So if you were to search for something online, what would you say? I need to Google it. Right. If you were to, if you went out for dinner with some friends and you said, hey, you know what, you pay for the bill and I'll just Venmo you, right? If you were going out for dinner and you wanted to have a few drinks of Proper 12 whiskey, and you said, you know what, I'm just going to Uber it, right? Isn't it interesting how those 3 words that I'm showing you on the screen have not become household names, but the other 3 you know without me telling you? Why is that? Why have they captured the market so intensely while these other brands who do exactly the same thing haven't been able to? Why do you think? First to market is absolutely part of it. However, Microsoft, who owned Bing, were around 25 years before Google. Market share could be, yes. Word of mouth is very important as well. Brand recognition, absolutely. All these things are correct. Reputation as well. I believe the main reason the other products have got the key phrase or become a verb is because of usefulness. They were the first to be able to say, hey, just Venmo me. What's Venmo? Oh, it's just this thing where you put money in and then I get the money. Okay, cool. Just download the app, right? Just Google it. I remember going on Google for the first time and thinking, I'm feeling lucky? What's that? I don't know, right? It was a weird thing at the time because we only had Internet Explorer and Alta Vista, for those of us who remember. But it just shows you how much of a pattern interrupt when I say, I'm just going to lift it to the bar. It doesn't make sense, right? I'm just going to Zell you, I'm going to Bing it. It doesn't make any sense at all. But that's what it's so strong in our culture and in our psyche that that's what happens. Now, I wanted to do a bit of show and tell tonight and show you something really cool that I have. This here is an iPhone 3. I've kept this for over 12 years. And amazingly, it still works. I don't know how, but it does not. It doesn't make calls, but it still turns on at least, right? Now, years and years ago, 12 years ago, I lived in Australia. And I actually was one of the first people in Australia to purchase an iPhone 3. This was the first iPhone that came to Australia. I was new in business and I thought, I want to look successful. I'm going to buy an iPhone, right? So I went out and bought one and connected it to the internet. And everywhere I went, I'd be walking around with my iPhone and people would say to me, is that an iPhone? And I'd say, yeah. And they'd say, can I have a look at it? And I'd say, okay. And they'd say, is it true you can go on the internet? I'd say, yeah, man, 2G speed. It's amazing. Can you put some music on that? Yeah, 8 gigs. It's crazy. Oh, wow. And you can take photos? Yeah, 8 megapixels. It's beautiful. So amazing. And everyone I would show this phone to would go and buy one. And I thought, you know what, I need to get shares in Apple or something. This is crazy. But it was the usefulness of this product. It wasn't the design. It wasn't anything else. You're looking at it now, it looks like this cute little toy, right? But back then, this was massively innovative. And if you think about it, that usefulness has just become part of what we do today. And yes, you can hate on Apple, you can love another brand, of course, but if you think about smartphones, they were very clever in terms of creating the usefulness behind the product that sold it for itself. Same as they did with the iPod and other products along the way. So what I like to say is when you're thinking about your products, is it kind of like an iPhone 3? Can you make your product do the marketing for you? Now, very often if you have a service, you can give people a sample of it. Same with a product. You can have some way of showing them what will happen if they join or become part of what you do. The ideal is if they can get their hands on it, and that's why I think the Apple Store is so genius, because you go in there and the products are doing the marketing for the company. They don't need to have the ads, but they're working for them, right? So that's where if you can start to align your product with the market enough and make it useful enough, you can potentially become an Uber or a Google or a Venmo or maybe even an iPhone if you're lucky, right? So that's the second thing I wanted to talk about is how can you get your product to do the marketing for you? And it takes tough thinking. It's not an easy thing to do, but the more you invest time and effort into the product, the more likely it is to actually do this for you on your behalf. So that's the second mindset. The third one is that your brand is a feeling. And I want to demonstrate this for you pretty easily. Have a look at those brands on the screen. And depending on your preferences in life and who you are and your history and things like that, some of those will mean something more to you than others. All right? If we look at Bud Light for a second, what kind of feelings do you have? Yuck. What else? Cheap. Good. We're going well. Yuck. Cheap. No taste. There we go. But it's very popular, right? Because it's kind of, the campaign that they had was Bud Light gives you so much more for less, right? The idea of low carb, of it being light beer, they were one of the first innovators in that field. Now, maybe it's not the greatest tasting beer, but we all seem to drink it. It seems to be around everywhere. I'm not personally a fan of it. But it's interesting how you can have an association and a feeling with that brand. How about Harley Davidson? What kind of feelings do you have when you see Harley Davidson? Risky? Noise? Gangs? There we go. We're going so positive here. This is great. But for the people who love Harley Davidson, what does it represent? freedom, rebelliousness, spirit, right? It's got all this built into it. And that's come over generations of them doing marketing. But the feeling is what is pushing them to want to buy. It's not a logical thing to drive a Harley Davidson. It's an emotional feeling. How about Whole Foods? What kind of feelings do we have? Expensive. Healthy. Organic, yeah. Sustainable, right? It has kind of a holistic kind of feel to it. You know, everyone who works there is a bit of a hipster, you know. It's kind of got this nice vibe to it when you walk in. You can kind of hang out there for hours. That's all built into it now, and that's slowly developed over time. And the last one's tricky unless you know what it is. Does anyone know what the last one is? Lululemon. Notice who answered? Ladies, exactly. Ladies, what does Lululemon represent for you? Exercise, yoga, comfy, expensive, style, right? My girlfriend is obsessed with Lululemon. I just leave her in there and go to the bar across the street, drink some Bud Light. It's just easier, trust me. But Lululemon has created this great brand around community. If you go into one of their stores, they have all the local practitioners of yoga and different fitness, you know, trainers and things like that all around the walls. Everything is very community-based. And they have built that over time just by focusing on not just creating sportswear, but actually creating a community as well. Now, I want to show you what I believe is the greatest brand in the history of the world. Are you ready? And I can say this as an Australian. Every single one of us has an emotional reaction to this. Whether it's negative or it's positive, it's significant, right? There are no words there. There's just a symbol. But it means something to all of us. We all are in this room, in this country, because of what it means to us in some respect. I moved here 10 years ago, and I could feel the difference. The brand of America, the culture of America, captured me because it's about freedom. It's about believing in yourself. It's about doing something that's going to move you forward in your life. That's very different to the culture I came from and other countries around the world. But you can feel something when you look at that for yourself. I can't tell you what it is, but you know it's there. And I wanted to share that with you because whenever you're looking at your brand, you will have feelings yourself, but you have to capture what your audience and the customers that you're going to be relating to, what they feel about it, and help them to have the emotions that you need them to have. So what I would say is think about it this way. How can you change the way people feel about your brand? Not how they think about it, but how they feel about it. And that's a tricky thing to do. It takes time, it takes commitment, and it can take changing a lot of things that you're doing in your business to make it work so that they feel differently about what they're doing. So those are my 3 ideas. The first one, does anyone remember the first one? Message matches the market. Very good. I wish I had more coupons to give you, but I ran out. Message matches the market. What about the second one? Your product does, yeah, exactly. So your product can do the marketing for you, or your product is your greatest form of marketing. And how about the third one? Your brand is a feeling. Very good. Thank you for remembering. I appreciate that. So there is one more thing. And this is something that I have carried with me for a long time. For those of you who don't know, that is Steve Jobs on the screen there. Do you know next year, 2021, he'll be gone 10 years since he passed away. But I think he made more of an impact on marketing and culture than anyone else I've seen. Now you can put aside, I know he was an autocratic leader and he stole people's ideas and he wore the same thing every day. He was a weird guy, right? But the one thing he was very good at was marketing. He's exceptional at it. And I heard this story through another gentleman who is a marketer, and he was telling this story how he was at a conference, and this was about 2008, 2009, something like that. So the iPhone was growing, they were just working on, getting the business up to this huge point where it was a massive success in the world. And he was at a conference, and he happened to see, standing over on the side, Steve Jobs by himself. And he was a huge fan of Steve Jobs. Obviously, he loved the marketing that the company had done, and he didn't know what to do. He saw him over on the corner over there standing by himself. So he decided to run over to him and introduce himself. And Steve Jobs didn't really care who he was, obviously. But he asked him one question. He said, Steve, you have spent your entire life building these amazing, incredible products, and you've been able to market them to the world like nobody else. What is your secret? And he said, Steve Jobs just almost stared through him for about a minute, said nothing. He said, I started to feel uncomfortable. I'm just standing there. This is awkward, right? And then eventually he said, I guess you have to care. And I've just kept that with me since that date when I heard that, because I think at the core of everything, that's exactly what makes a successful business, and that's what makes amazing marketing, is that you have to care. And you can tell a company that does not care. They don't put the effort and the time into the product. They don't do it in their marketing, their customer service. Something is missing, and you can feel it, and you don't want to be part of it. So I would say for you, if you don't care about your product or your service, either don't market that product or find a way to care about it. Because the more you care, the more that's going to transmit to your market and your audience, and eventually the success of your business. So I hope these ideas have been valuable for you. I hope you can see that I care about marketing. I will be around for the rest of the events. We're going to have one of my good friends, an amazing speaker, up next. But this is my company, and if you would like to connect, that's my social and my website. I'd be more than happy to answer questions. And I will now pass back to our MC.